Jerry and Charlie riding through the airwaves, bringing you the heat. Come on, pull your fans. Now get up out your seat. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. Now you're listening to Shea Station.
Today is Tuesday, September 16th, the 232nd episode of Shea Station. A dozen games remain for our New York Mets. They maintain a game-and-a-half lead in the wildcard standings. Fangraphs will have you believe that it's a done deal, but not on this show. We're going to talk about all the hypotheticals, what could happen, 12 games to go, all the probables, and joining me for the first time in a long while. I'm very happy to see his face. Jerry Blevins is back on the pod. I have so much to ask you, Jerry, but you know what the first question is going to be. How you doing?
How you doing? I'm great, man. As you noticed, Jolly, before we started recording, I am in a chipper mood.
Jazzy.
It's beautiful, beautiful here in Ohio. Enjoying the, hopefully not Indian summer. It's been so nice here. I'm just soaking it up. But I'm in a good mood. Played some golf yesterday, raised some money for some charities. Just good times in general for me personally, away from baseball. So
I was very relieved to see you in a good mood because I thought the combination of Mets losses and then also your guy Joe Burrow with grade 3 turf toe.
No, don't do that.
Sounds like it hurts, man. We got to talk about it a little. You wear a Bengals hat every time you're on the show. Jake Browning, revenge game. Jake Browning, revenge game.
I forgot it.
You forgot.
You brought it up. Yeah, that does hurt. 3 months-ish.
Yeah.
That's going to be tough.
I have them winning this Sunday, though. You're good.
Now I'm in a bad mood.
No. I didn't do that. Well, I'm just going to cut that part out, and then you're going to go from good mood to bad mood. Very jarring.
They finally started out like good. Not even good. They won 2 games, though. And then you do that to me?
Yeah.
All right.
That's just Cincinnati sports,
baseball.
baby. Let's talk baseball. This is not a football pod, but we got a football pod.
Now I'm like Angry Mets Twitter right now.
Yes,
because
good.
Of what you just did.
Good. I'm trying to bring that angry energy out of you because the last time we chatted, Jerry, the Mets were fresh off a sweep at home against the Phillies. And since then, they have done a whole lot of losing, including a sweep on the road at the hands of the Phillies, in addition to a couple more series losses, including their most recent series loss against the Texas Rangers, which you could argue is the best series that they've played in 2 weeks because they actually won a game. They won the finale 5-2 on a walk-off 3-run homer from Pete Alonso. But to get to that point, a lot of bad things happened that we are going to talk about in this series. Of course, the Rangers were one of the hottest teams in baseball. It was a tall task to begin with, and it was a task that was kind of partnered up with some emotions as Jacob deGrom made his return Friday night to Citi Field. I was at that game. I wanted to first and foremost ask you, as a former teammate of the greatest pitcher in Mets history, second greatest, you decide at home? Second greatest.
You could make an argument he's second. Doc Gooden's up there.
Maybe
Frank
even third.
Viola. There's been some good performances, but the franchise is number one.
Yeah, I think so.
But deGrom is the greatest pitcher I've ever seen. I was really torn emotionally. I love this version of Jacob deGrom at this point in his career. He's a little bit humble in the sense that he's gone through injuries, and it's calmed him down personality-wise. To see him open up and warm with the Alumni Classic there, seeing old teammates, it was nice to see him get emotional about being back in New York. I'm glad it took a while because I think if it happened right away, I don't love the fact that every player now just goes right back to their team that they played for in the city. It feels like the same, the very next year they do that. It was nice that we had the delay because I think the appreciation on both sides of what they had in each other was magnified and amplified because you can be nostalgic about what we got from deGrom as fans, and deGrom can be appreciative of what New York gave him and his family and the Mets gave him directly. It was wonderful to see. It was nice to see him back on the mound. I was emotional knowing just him personally and what he's gone through, um, the turmoil of a second Tommy John, the question of if he's going to be back to being dominant, and he wasn't dominant in the same way that we've seen him, but he was dominant nonetheless. 7 innings and what, under 90 pitches. Um, Man, we could have used that in the Mets uniform.
It would have been nice to never see him wear another uniform. Yeah, this is his first full season in 6 years since 2019, and it's I think you nailed it with like the appreciation from afar of like, I think if he had come to the Mets on the same deal that he took from the Rangers, it would have been off discussed, like what is happening to his career and all this stuff. And I think that still was a discussion when he was a Ranger, but it's nice that he was able to get a fresh start. He sort of had to reinvent himself, and you kind of saw that in the start. 7 innings, but 2 strikeouts. That's not a very Jacob deGrom stat line, playing to a lot of contact. But that worked for the Texas Rangers. It's worked all season long. The Mets were hitting balls hard, but not as hard as the Rangers were hitting in the first inning against Jonah Tong when they did decide to swing, because they weren't swinging all that much. They were very patient, kind of just waiting for the fastball. This was, I was at this game. This was a tough scene, honestly. You sat down and almost felt like the game was immediately over. So I next want to ask you about Jonah Tong, because we've now seen 3 starts from him. The first was pretty good. Some unearned runs there kind of racked up the pitch count, so he only went 5 innings. The second start was competitive, but the home run ball was flying, 3 solo home runs. And then this third start, an absolute meltdown, unfortunately, and what, is the biggest start of the season for him and probably his entire professional career. And really, the first time Jonah Tong has faced any sort of adversity at a professional level. He's breezed through the minor leagues in the span of less than 2 years, and now he's at the major league level facing one of the greatest pitchers in Mets history in a different uniform in games that are as close to as must-win as you can possibly get. So I wanted to just get your opinions on the Jonah Tong situation. Did you think that the Mets rushed him up? Do you think that they didn't set him up for success, or do you think this is just a hiccup and he's going to be able to rebound well?
I think that's a good question. I don't think the Mets rushed him up at all. I think there was an opportunity there. I think the success that Nolan McLean had kind of paved the way for him. And the Mets still had a need. Like, they just moved Manaea out of the starting rotation just to keep Tong in. I think I would have still switched or moved Jonah Tong to AAA because he's not ready. He's got a little bit of growing to do. And you're right, this is the first adversity he's ever faced in his life, I assume, as far as pitching. He's just rough. He's rough around the edges. His stuff is there. I love his attitude. I love the personality that he brings to it. He's enjoying it. But his flaws were magnified at this level. The plate discipline, he's not getting swings and misses at pitches that he normally does. I guarantee that. They're just more patient in the big leagues. They're going to make you prove it. And he doesn't have the consistent control enough to have the same success at the same rate that he was in AAA. I love what I see. I think he's going to be a really good piece of this rotation for the next, for the foreseeable future. He's just, to me, not ready yet. I think this is good for him. I think having a mirror held in front of you at the highest level and being like, look, you have great stuff. You have a great mound presence, but you have some flaws. Here they are. It's up to you to fix them. You don't get that.
Right.
Normally you get that in the minor leagues, but he was so good that he never got that. Now it's up to him. Having your symptoms laid out in front of you and being like, here, you're a professional now, fix it or work on it. It's a blessing because now as a pitcher, it's a lot easier to make those adjustments than it is as a hitter to me. A lot of guys come up and they're like, have success as a hitter. And then the league sees you and they're like, all right, guess what? He's struggling with that back foot slider. Guess what you're going to see? A lot of back foot sliders. We've seen it with Vientos. We've seen it with Beatty. We've seen it with Alvarez. It's hard to work on that. Command, control, that's easier to work on. It's not easy to make the adjustments, but it's easier to work on because your velocity or the amount of strikes that you throw haven't mattered to you yet. And it's more of he's probably been told, hey, you're going to need to throw more strikes more often. You're going to need to be able to locate your fastball when you need it. He's heard it and he's believed it, but he hasn't truly believed it in his DNA because he's like, look, why if it ain't broke, don't fix it
Right.
kind of
Why
thing.
would I need to change who I am? You know what I mean?
Now he's seen that and he's like, okay, good. Maybe I need to dial some things in here. So I think he's going to be great. Again, I felt like their greater chance of success in the short term because they need those victories would be to try to iron out Manaya's, issues that he has and leave Tong either in the bullpen as the long guy or to iron it out outside of the big leagues. But these guys have made right decisions all along. Bringing McLean up, Sproat looked really good. I just think Tong needs a little bit more seasoning. He's not quite ready on a consistent basis that the Mets need now. And again, no fault of the Mets for bringing him up when they did. They gave him an opportunity to have success. He just hasn't had the success, and the issues that they were worried about initially just showed their face, and they will address them as they go.
Yeah, I mean, 22 years old, third major league start. I will say I like that you brought up his kind of mentality, or I guess the presence he maintained, because that must have been a hard moment, but Tonk still faced the media after the game, answered every question. Those clips were kind of tough to look at because you can tell how much it was weighing on him to not perform in that situation. Didn't get out of the first inning in this one, but hopefully this is a lesson in Tong, trusting his stuff a little bit more, being more aggressive in the zone, not walking as many guys and not being afraid to throw his fastball. Because I do think it was just like kind of a fear of repeating what happened in Cincinnati when he got taken deep 3 times. One of those was an Austin Hayes bomb. That was, one of the longer home runs I've seen this year. You got to imagine that sticks in the brain of someone who's making his second career start at that point. But unfortunately for the Mets, despite, putting up 3 runs in the third inning, this game was over before it really started. And it kind of just continued the pile on of losses that the Mets had been enduring to that point. Game 2, though, as you alluded to before, was the Brandon Sproat start. And this is kind of a similar discussion, but Sproat, he gives you a different vibe, just for me, based on him being just a couple years older with a bit more minor league seasoning under his belt and a bit more evolution as a pitcher in terms of his arsenal this year. And he was incredibly impressive in this start. Was losing his velo a little bit towards the end, but got that huge double play to get out of the 6th inning. And he gave the Mets a much needed scoreless start that they unfortunately could not capitalize on, which has been a persistent theme over the past 2 weeks for this team. They weren't able to hit Patrick Corbin, which really, that one really bothered me because I've seen this team hit Patrick Corbin a ton, and I'm not trying to discredit the year that he's having, but I do particularly attach it to he's facing American League teams more than National League teams for the first time in his career. There's going to be some sort of, maybe newfound edge there for Patrick Corbin, and this is a team that he has faced a ton because he pitched for 6 years with the Washington Nationals, most of those years being bad, but that was just kind of the nature of the Mets offense at that point. So Brandon Sproat unable to get the win in this one, but what stood out to you about Brandon Sproat's second start in the major leagues?
Yeah, I mean, you touched it. He's just more polished. His what he brings to the table is honed in to have success at the big leagues, or if he wasn't going to have success, he's not going to have success, if that makes sense.
Sure.
He throws a ton of strikes. He's got 4 or 5 major league quality pitches that he brings out. I thought his curveball played better than I thought it would. He's going to be good, and we knew that going in. We knew just from the repertoire that he brings, from the stat lines that he's put up, that he's going to have success. I think he's a positive piece of the future as well. I really liked his mound presence. He's kind of calm and cool and collected.
Right.
But you said it. He's got a few more years on him. He's just a little bit more seasoned. He's been, on the rise as of late. But he was competitive. He
Yeah.
gave the team a chance to win. You know, you mentioned Patrick Corbin, who's having a fantastic year, kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's truly they tapped into something. I don't know what he's doing. I think he dropped his arm angle a touch, which adds to the deception. Whatever it is that they did, they figured it out. I'm not sure the Mets are going to hit anyone right now.
Yeah.
And no offense to Patrick Corbin, I think, I think Jonah Tong or Brandon Sproat, if he's facing this lineup right now, is going to do the same thing that everybody else is doing. But I really liked what Brandon Sproat brought to the table. I think going, 5+ innings in an outing is already a leg up on most of what guys have been bringing to the table. He's a big leaguer, and he looks the part. He looks like he's going to be there for a long time. The ceiling's not the same as it is with Nolan McLean, but there's still some untapped, places where he can improve. But I like what I've seen so far, and he's earned his spot in that rotation.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Mets offense before in quote unquote support of Brandon Sproat, which you can't really say in this game, but we had that 2 weeks where, you were seeing all these crooked numbers from the Mets offense. They put up 12 on Atlanta, 9 on Atlanta, 13 on Philly, 19 on Miami, 10 and 12 against Detroit. And then all of a sudden, the past 10 days, the offense has returned to being almost absolutely dormant outside of Juan Soto and the occasional good Francisco Lindor game. In this game specifically, game 2, they went 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position, failing to tack on to a 2-0 lead, which ended up costing them late when the bullpen wasn't able to hold it together. What has stood out to you in terms of like what you've seen from the at-bats that they're taking? I feel like it's been I feel like I've seen a lot of breaking pitches go for called strikes. I feel like the pensiveness or the passiveness of this lineup has returned in a very detrimental way, and not a lot of extra base hits either. Like, do you think that there is an easy remedy for this lineup right now, or is it kind of just they're going through another one of these ebbs and flows that they really can't afford right now?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's the ebbs and flows of a season. And again, this is the problem with the way the Mets have played offensively is you can't go this cold as a team and expect to do anything. Usually there's like a couple of guys go into a slump and the other guys pick it up, and you can kind of balance each other out as you're going through it. But this is the problem with this year's Mets. Three different times this year they've lost 7 or more games,
Which like a playoff team does not do. Like, I don't think there's ever been a playoff team that does
and
that.
a team with this talent in that lineup shouldn't go through that. You have established names that should be able to work themselves out and carry an offense every once in a while. Juan Soto, for all his numbers of not hitting with runners in scoring position, 40-30 is absurd. I did not see him stealing 30 bags.
I don't think anyone did.
I don't know if he did.
Yeah.
I think he was just like, yeah, I guess I can do it. You got what you paid for in Juan Soto this year.
Yes.
He has been consistent. I mean, that's the key. He hasn't. There's been times and there's areas of his game where he'll improve as a Met and be better with runners in scoring position, driving them in. But truly, I mean, he's a top 5 offensive hitter in the game, and he's added the element of base running this year. And he's been consistent. His ability to get on base is what you liked in him, to get on base in front of, at the time it would be, Vientos and Alonso and Nimmo, for those guys to drive him in. They're just not getting him in. He's not getting a ton of RBI himself, but he's doing his job. It's everyone else, too, that has lacked, and you can't have this inconsistency. That being said, this team is still talented enough to put up an incredible run.
Yeah.
I think of what the Diamondbacks did when they made the wild card and snuck in. They made it to the World Series. This Mets team could do that. Obviously, it would be more expected because of the payroll, because of the talent, the names on the back of those jerseys in the offense. But they're going to need to figure out how to put it together, and they just haven't figured it out consistently. Thank goodness for Pete Alonso's walk-off homer. You know, the rotation gave them a chance. Even with Tong, he gave up 6 in the first, but the pitchers came in and kind of held it tight, and they tried to chip away. It was a winnable game at a point. But you got to put up runs.
Yeah.
And you have to put up runs against Patrick Corbin, because even though he's had a good year, he's not deGrom. You faced a Phillies team without Zach Wheeler. You have to be able to. You've banged around Aaron Nola plenty in his career, and you couldn't do it. Like those kinds of things, man. It's frustrating, and I can feel it from the Mets fan standpoint, especially. I have it now. I have that frustration of like, it's been 5+ months of inconsistency. The offense hasn't clicked for a good stretch all season long, I don't think. The offense or the starting staff and bullpen carried them through the month of April and into it. That is, their issues are they dealt with injuries and maybe couldn't find their way back, but they also never really brought in a true ace that a lot of the fans were begging for, and it showed. But the offense was supposed to be the backbone, and they've been anything but that on a consistent basis all season long.
Yeah, I mean, you look up and down the numbers on this team and you say, okay, well, a lot has gone right for the Mets this year on paper, but if you've watched the games, you'll know it doesn't exactly feel that way. It feels like a bunch of great individual performances and never a great team performance. You brought up the 2023 Diamondbacks before. I will say this, and it might bring some ease to the mind of the Met fan. That team lost 6 of their last 9 games and barely squeaked into the playoffs in the midst of one of their worst skids of the year, and then they went to the World Series. So you never know. I know that that's like a little bit different, and you got to factor in what they went through in their whole story as a team. But in terms of this Mets team, you're absolutely right. There's never been a stretch of, I want to say longer than maybe 2 weeks, that this offense has felt like it's really gelled and come together. And this series was case in point of that happening again. I mean, Juan Soto has been hitting. Brett Baty has great numbers in September, but has not been playing a lot, which has really bothered me. Those are the only 2 guys in this lineup since September 6th with an OPS over 700, which is not good, especially in the most important.
Can you repeat that again?
Yes, Brett Baty and Juan Soto are the only 2 hitters in the Mets lineup to have an OPS over 700 since September 6th, which is a 10-game span. Yeah, it's not good. It's not great. It's not awesome, especially when you're finally starting to get some semblance of consistency from your starting rotation. I actually like the decision to start piggybacking Sean Manaea and Clay Holmes, because guess what? They did it one time in a game against the Royals, and that they gave up, I think, 2 runs in that game and struck out 14. So, I mean, it worked once. I have reason to believe it can work again, and I would like to see Jonah Tong get another look and have that last start not be his last note. But you mentioned not having a horse to rely on. Maybe the Mets have 2 guys they can trust now in Sproat and especially McLean. McLean feels like as sure of a bet as anybody on this team right now, and we'll get to his performance in Game 3. But I do need to talk to you about the Mets bullpen right now, which you could argue is in a worse state than their lineup. In Game 2, I know a 2-0 lead is not the safest lead in baseball by any means, but the Mets were in a situation where they could deploy arguably the only 2 relievers they really trust, or 3, I guess, if you want to include Brooks Raley as well, who's having a nice year. But Tyler Rogers got an opportunity in this game. Edwin Diaz got an opportunity in this game. Both of them were unable to come through, and the Rangers ended up winning this game 3-2. I got to ask you this, because bullpen is your specialty. Who is truly in Jerry Blevin's circle of trust in the Mets bullpen right now? Because for me, it's a tight circle, and it's one that I don't feel good about.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone in the true, like, for real.
Yeah.
I mean, if I were, I don't feel safe putting anybody in.
Yeah,
because you've just been inconsistent. I mean, it's obvious that the Diaz, Rogers, Raley are the 3 most consistent guys, and they can't be perfect every time. I think the pressure on them to be perfect adds up. You know, you're going to have errors, in the sense that knowing that you can't give up a run, sometimes that creates a way of pitching that's not in that. But I think that's the 3. There's been inconsistencies with Reed Garrett. I mean, Ryan Helsley, I still think the trade is a great trade.
Yeah, I
I still
agree.
think it was the right move. He just has been
You forgot how to
really,
pitch.
really,
It's
yeah. And I
insane.
don't I don't know what it is about it. I mean, I don't know what it is. But it reminds me of like, when the Yankees traded for Frankie Montas and he was horrible.
Sure. Yeah.
It was like you have expectations that he's going to solidify and he's done the opposite. And those you can be not as good and still bring positive things to the team when you're not having, but he's brought so much negativity as far
Mm.
as just tight games become games that you lose when he's in the ball game, and it's just been a letdown. And I really think that Helsley's inability to even be competitive a lot has pushed Mendoza and the bullpen to step up and do things that they normally wouldn't do or shouldn't plan on doing and stretch guys and pitch them more often. Um, so I think that strain of having a guy that you're sure was going to be the eighth inning to set up Diaz just completely collapse
Yeah.
has really, really tanked games that should have been won. That they didn't. So
Yeah.
the trust tree is the circle of trust is very slim, but this is something you can't do anything about it at this point. You've got Diaz there, you've got Rogers, you've got Rayleigh. I still like Soto. I still believe in the names that the players that they are,
Right.
and you have to let them do their thing. But it's you nailed it though. It's if to me it feels just like their lineup, like they're just not playing up to the level that they need to have consistent success and to bail your team out every once in a while.
Yeah, it really, for me, and you kind of took the words out of my mouth, it comes down to the trade capital investment and the financial investment that is made in guys like Gregory Soto, Ryan Helsley, and Ryan Stanek, which is essentially hamstrung the bullpen when it's supposed to help the bullpen because now you don't have, 2 to 3 spots that could go to guys that have, performed. They're not the household names, but like Chris Davinsky has given the Mets a lot of good innings this year. Austin Warren, every time he's taken the mound, has like breathes life into the team, giving them like 4 scoreless innings out of nowhere. And those guys have earned September innings that they don't get because of the trades that we liked that were made at the deadline to supposedly bolster this bullpen. It's done anything but. It really highlights, I know he didn't have a great series, but it really highlights how important signing Brooks Raley off the street on a minor league deal was. Like, that was insane. It makes me wish the Mets did the same thing with David Robertson, who is now pitching really well for the Phillies as their 7th inning guy, as they have riches in their bullpen. But point blank, the Mets had their best 3 relievers in this game to protect a 2-0 lead for 3 innings, and they were unable to get that job done as the Mets fell in game 2, 3-2, which brought us to the brink, game 3, staring down the barrel of yet another sweep, staring down the barrel of potentially what would have been an L9, I think. Was that their 8th loss in a row? 7th or 8th loss? It's hard.
That would have been an L9 in game 3.
Yeah, so it's hard to keep track of these days how many games the Mets are losing, as you can tell. Luckily, the savior of the 2025 season, and I don't think that's being hyperbolic at all, Nolan McLean was on the mound, and his sinker looked nasty again. His sweeper looked unbelievable. The patient Rangers lineup was forced to swing at pitches that they know they couldn't hit, as my lights went off in the studio yet again, right on cue. Nolan McLean. Nah, it's never getting fixed. That's part of the charm of the show, Jerry. Come on. Nolan McLean, 6 starts into his career, the only pitcher in Major League history with an ERA that low and 40 or more strikeouts in baseball history. I assume I know the answer to this. If the Mets do still scratch their way into the playoffs, your game 1 starter is
Nolan McLean. Yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, you burst onto the scene and you show dominance on that level. The poise on the mound. He checks every box with a plus.
Yeah.
And then it's the other guys, To me, a month ago when he made his debut, it was still David Peterson, that 1-2. Maybe you give the nod to the vet because he's been there before. That's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
We have too much runway to see that. Like, Peterson hasn't been good for quite a long stretch. He's still having a great year. I still believe in David Peterson.
Me too.
I still like what Clay Holmes brings to the table, but it's been inconsistent and it's short because of the innings. But to me, it's definitely Nolan McLean takes game 1 and game 7, or game 1 and game 5, or game 1, 4, 7, depending.
Yeah.
That puts a lot of pressure on the kid. And this is a longer season than he's ever had in his life.
Right.
There are some issues that go into that. You don't want to have to do that, but he's a guy that you can throw out there, and I think I have confidence in him that he's going to be himself regardless of the spotlight. 6 starts is a lot, and it's not fluky. It's not. He hasn't done it because they haven't seen it. He's just that good. I don't expect him to win the Cy Young every year, but he's been incredible. This is just a little note. I check up the Fangraphs and the Baseball Reference, and one of the things that Baseball Reference does is when you go on to the season page for the Mets, they put 12 thumbnails of the photos, headshots of the top 12 by B-WAR, by Baseball Reference WAR.
Yeah.
Of the players, and Juan Soto, Lindor, Alonso, Nimmo are the top 4. Sitting at number 10 is Nolan McLean with 6 starts.
That's crazy.
I mean, that is crazy how much value. He's got 2.1 WAR in 6 starts. That is how valuable he's been. He has breathed new life into this organization. Savior of a season, possibly, if these guys can eke these things out, because he's given them such a chance. That youthful fire, it lights up everybody else to be able to take a deep breath.
Yes.
And it allows a guy like David Peterson to not feel like he has to be perfect, because that's not when he's at his best. So I don't know how, without getting hyperbolic, like how much more praise I can give to Nolan McLean, except to be like, dude, you're the man.
Yeah.
And I appreciate watching you every 5th day. I think he is a legitimate Cy Young contender at some point in his career. Maybe he's a top 25 type guy in the league, but that's good enough. Yes. I love what I've seen from him. I think he's, from all accounts, a great young man too. So I don't know where they would be without his 6 starts. Just the life that he brought back in, the chance to break out of these long losing streaks, giving him a chance to win every day that he takes the mound. He's special, man.
Mets are 5-1 in Nolan McLean's 6 starts. The one loss was 1-0 in Philadelphia in the game where they couldn't score off Aaron Nola. They should really be 6-0. And you mentioned the innings before. Something I had thought about but not really taken a look at. You're absolutely right. His previous career high was last year, 109 innings. This year, he's already blazed past 140. And, if the Mets make the playoffs, he's going to get a start there as well. So you have to imagine he's going to cross 150 with ease this year. But man, is he fun to watch. And yes, I do believe he's become the stopper for this team, and he's earned that game 1 ball. You mentioned the WAR value, and this is no slack on Clay Holmes, because I think for what you've signed him for, he's been exceptional. You signed him to be your 5 starter. He ended up your 2 starter. That's not Clay Holmes' fault. 29 starts this year compared to Nolan McLean's 6. Clay Holmes has 1.5 WAR compared to Nolan McLean's 2.1 in 6 starts. That just goes to show you how effective McLean is on the mound, how valuable he is on the mound, pitching deep into games, not walking anybody. He's allowed 1 home run in 37 2/3 major league innings. The really only thing he's had any sort of issue with, if you can even call it that, is the walks. But that's just because I think guys after his 3rd start have been chasing a little bit less. But his stuff is so nasty that he can still go after hitters and not get battered around. And you saw that in this start. He was very aggressive against the Texas Rangers early and late in this game. Just like Brandon Sproat, stoic on the mound, veteran presence, and he gives you 6 shutout innings. So the Mets almost find themselves in a deja vu game where they're once again protecting. It was a 2-0 lead, I believe, late in this one because Brandon Nimmo got a home run in this game, which I think was it'll go kind of unnoticed in terms of the script of this game in this series, but he needed a long ball so bad. He has been taking arguably some of the tougher at-bats I've seen on this team during this really bad stretch. Him and McNeil just look a little bit lost right now after being really good for the Mets in August. Those two guys were some of the better hitters in the lineup. The Mets had so many opportunities early in this game against Jacob Latz. They got 2 walks and a stolen base in the first inning. They got 3 more base runners in the second inning, and they did not score. They got a double in the 5th inning. It was extremely frustrating to watch. They were eventually able to squeak out 2 runs against their bullpen. So once again, the Mets bullpen gets an opportunity in this game. Brooks Raley comes in, gets 2 outs, and then hits his last batter. So he has to come out for who we talked about a little bit about before, Reed Garrett, who comes in this game, gets ahead on Wyatt Langford 0-2, and then just throws 4, I can't think of a better word, 4 uncompetitive pitches against Langford. He had a couple nice takes, but again, that splitter is just basically dive bombing into the dirt anytime Reed Garrett throws it. And then as soon as Jock Peterson stepped into the dish, you almost just felt like you knew it was going to happen. We've seen Jock Peterson on the wrong side of so many Mets lowlights throughout the years. He knocks the 2-run single to tie the game, so it's once again a tied game. I will say, kudos to Tyler Rogers and Edwin Diaz, pitching for a second straight day, facing largely the same hitters. They were able to get the Mets through 9 innings, still in a tie game. The guy that we got to talk about at the bullpen, though, for sure in this game is Ryan Stanek, who took the ball in the 10th inning after the Mets pushed the Diaz button, I think, in the right spot. They had to get a scoreless frame there just to keep their hopes of winning this game alive. I think they were hoping to end it before it got to the 10th, and that sadly didn't happen. Stanek comes in. He's got to face the top of the Rangers order with a runner on second. He's had, I'll call it a nightmarish season. It just felt like his season has never really gotten off the ground at all. But he gets the fly out, issues the walk to Peterson, which I didn't mind. It kind of felt like a sneaky pitch around, but still competitive, 7-pitch at bat. And then he's able to punch the last ticket there. Adolis Garcia, strikeout, and then a Rowdy Tellez pop out. That Ryan Stanek inning. And you know what? I want to say this too. I know that he does this a lot when he throws a good inning. He'll do the roar and he'll scream and he'll throw up the 2 fingers. I think the Mets needed that like jolt of energy pretty bad. I think that you can see it in the body language of a lot of the players in the clubhouse right now, that they're frustrated, that they don't know why they're not winning, that they feel like they should be playing better baseball with the talent they have in this room. I keep hearing the talent is undeniable in this room, and I do agree. It's just like, why aren't they winning? I think having someone like Ryan Stanek come up big when you maybe didn't necessarily expect him to, and then release all that energy, all that pent-up frustration, I thought that was a big lift for the team. But that inning is probably, I'd say, Ryan Stanek's best performance of the season.
Yeah, I mean, they needed this win. Like there's every win is a must win. Every game is must win from here on out.
It's the playoffs.
And you weren't set up. Stanek's been so frustrating, throughout his career for the most part because of his ups and downs, and they're just so extreme. This was one where the team absolutely needed him to step up, and kudos to him, man, because he did it. He stepped up in a big way. And I do think it fired the boys up for a little bit. Like, all right, let's get it now. You threw up a 0 with a runner, with the Manfred runner on second. Just put one across. Let's win. Let's go into the off day, reset, and come back and put this thing together. And thank goodness that they did that, because Stanek's outing, set up by the guys in front of him. We talked about it with McLean and all those guys, but that was needed from a guy that you haven't been able to rely on all season consistently. For him to come up in a situation like that with the team's, hopes and prayers on his back, to show out with a performance like that. And he looked great. Yeah. His stuff really looked good. What we talked about with Reed Garrett's non-competitiveness, we've seen that from Stanek, the same kind of inconsistency where sometimes you're going to get hit. Sometimes you're going to throw strikes and hitters are going to beat you. It's the big leagues. But these two guys throughout the season have beat themselves so many times that it's really frustrating. And I think that was a moment for Garrett another chance, and he just beats himself by non-competitive pitches where out of your hand, the hitter just knows that it's not anywhere near the strike zone, so it's a waste pitch. And when you do that so often, it puts you on your heels in your team, and it's deflating. So for Stanek to go out, he did the opposite. He inflated them, ready to go, and that was a huge performance by him.
Yeah, and the Mets were able to win the game pretty much immediately after. I think that if they let that go to an 11th inning, that could have been probably another one of these rock bottom points, which the Mets have had so many of this season. It always feels like, okay, this is rock bottom. Can't get worse. This game would have been, I think, the worst feeling we've had pretty much all year long. Instead, Pete Alonso plays hero, gets his 5th walk-off home run as a Mets, the most in franchise history. Said it felt like he was riding a dragon when he was running around the bases, but it was really nice to see, one, these guys celebrate a win, which has been, nearly 2 weeks since they were able to do that, and two, you kind of release the frustrations and the anxieties with getting a walk-off win, sort of something everyone can roar and celebrate about. Pete Alonso being the guy to do it was huge as well because the Mets are going to need him to go a little bit more than he's been going. Some really tough September at-bats for him. But the Mets eke out the finale. They get to reset yesterday with the off day. Now they begin a 3-gamer with the San Diego Padres at home at Citi Field. 12 games to go. 3 with the Padres, 3 with the Nats, off day. Then 3 at Wrigley with the Cubs and 3 in Miami with the Marlins. 12 games to decide your destiny of the 2025 season. It's scary. The probables for this Padres series, Clay Holmes and Michael King in game 1. You're going to see the Clay Holmes, Sean Manaea piggyback tonight. Very interested in that. Very interested to see how that goes. David Peterson in game 2. He's been pitching competitively. Not quite to the standard we've seen, obviously, in prior months. He goes against Nick Pivetta, who's definitely going to finish top 5 in Cy Young voting. And then game 3, Jonah Tong versus Dylan Cease. The Mets got to Dylan Cease earlier this year, the Mark Vientos grand slam in San Diego. They did lose that game. And then Tong, of course, coming off, the toughest professional start of his career. Hopefully he can rebound. This is going to be a tough series for the Mets coming up. They've set themselves up in a way where they have 3 pretty good pitching matchups against the Nats, where they're going to be able to send 2 of their, trusted rookies out there. But the Mets taking this series would be big because the Giants and Diamondbacks are currently playing each other, which I think is important for these teams right below us to kind of just mess each other up and kind of give the Mets some breathing room, which you saw last night with the Diamondbacks win. The Reds just won their game after getting swept by the A's. Shout out Jerry's A's. We appreciate it. That was huge. I guess I wanted to ask you, because I know you're not always supposed to play this game, but we're fans, so we're going to play this game. The Mets are 77 and 73. They're 4 games over 500. What is the win total you think they need to get to ensure that they're involved in the dance come October?
Glad you asked, my friend, because we played this game when the Mets had 19 games to go on BNNY on SNY. And I think the number still sticks because of the schedule. But I think you have to win. You have 4 3-game series left.
Yes.
You have the Padres, the Nationals, the Cubs, and the Marlins. I think you have to win all those series. You don't have to sweep anybody, but I still think you need to go. So this was the total. They had to go 9 and 10.
What a world! What a world we could have lived in.
8 and 4. I think they have to win 2 out of 3. Finish at 85. The number might be a little bit higher than that. I think we talked about the Diamondbacks already. They stumbled down the block. I think they only won 84 games that year.
Yeah, they only won 84.
I think 85 gets it done. You won't feel great about it because it's going to come down to the wire. But that's all you got to do. You got to win series. That's what you're trying to do. You're going to try to sweep, but just win series. You got a tough Padres team at home, thankfully. Then you have teams that you should be in the Nationals, and you finish with the Marlins, and you have the Cubs in there. So just win series. That's what you have to do.
That's what a playoff team would do, right? I think for me, I'm slightly below you. I think I'm at that 84 win total, which would be 7 and 5 in their last 12. I have a really tough time. I mean, I'm obviously going to root for it and hope for it, but I have a really tough time seeing them win this Padres series. The Padres have been not a great road team. They haven't played well against winning teams, but they already swept us this year, and they've got much better pitchers on their probables for this 3-game set, but anything can happen in a 3-game set. You never know. The Mets have been great at home. Those Nationals and Marlins series, man, I know it's bad memories of 07 with Mets fans, but those are the games you have to look at and say that's where the Mets need to get fat. Winning 5 of those 6, 4 of those 6, whatever, can almost ensure that you make it. Right now, they got a 1.5 lead on the Diamondbacks, who are now the closest team in the wildcard standings at a game over 500. And then they got a 2-game lead on the Reds and Giants. The Reds hold that tiebreaker, which is scary. That's, I think, the team that you want to disappear the most, which made that sweep in Sacramento very, very big for the Mets because the Reds were creeping in. The Giants were the hot team for a while. They ran into the Dodgers over the weekend, and they have to play 4 more with the Dodgers in LA this time. They lost their series at home. So that could either be the series that legitimizes the Giants or basically ends their season. So I'm really interested to see how that pans out. That's after they play the Diamondbacks, who I think have, let me check their schedule. I'm not as familiar because honestly, I've had to watch a lot of random broadcasts over the past 2 weeks and pay attention to a bunch of random team schedules because that's what this is. Yeah, the Diamondbacks have this Giants series. Then they go Philly, Dodgers, and then at San Diego. At San Diego versus hosting San Diego, 2 very different feelings. But there's also the factor that those teams could clinch potentially by the time those series roll around. Who knows if they put their best foot forward against the Diamondbacks. So there's just a lot to juggle in the mind of the Mets fan right now. But the biggest thing is that this team currently controls its destiny. And you just hope that, after they've had a 7-game losing streak this year, which they've done 3 times, they've usually rebounded in a nice way with some winning baseball. And hopefully that can stay the same for this upcoming stretch. But 12 games to go to decide your destiny. We're going to be talking a lot about the Mets over the next 2 weeks and hopefully into October as well. But I do think that's all I got for this show, Jerry. You got anything else?
Same. That's it. You touched on the thing I was going to say. They control their own destiny. That's all you could hope for. They don't deserve it at this point.
No, not at all. Not at all.
They haven't earned that. Obviously, they have with the wins, but they have the most, the easiest of the schedules, I would say, even though I
would say it too, but in Mets land, that means almost nothing.
Yep, and so now it's on the table for them. They want it or they don't. So they're still, and you're right, the talent offensively is undeniable.
Yes. Now
it's time to show it. Your backs are against the wall. Let's push forward. You control your own fate. Let's see what you got. What are you made of this year? What are the 2025 New York Mets made of? These last 4 series will tell you. Yeah,
this is really this will be a point where things either stay the same or change for these Mets. Like the Cohen era Mets, how do they respond to this adversity? Because we know what prior generations of Mets teams did in scenarios like this. How different is this roster? How different is this team? Because I do think if they don't make it, a lot of guys are going to go, whether it's personnel, whether it's players. I know a lot of guys are under contract, but this team it'll look different next year. So it's on them. Really, I think that's the biggest thing. It's on these players. If they want to stay together and keep this core together, they got to go out there and they got to win some ball games against teams that they should beat, the teams that they're going to play in October if they make it. These are all games that you need to compete in. Put the past 9 games behind you. It's ancient history. It happened. The 1999 Mets who went to the NLCS, they also sputtered at the end and nearly missed the playoffs, if not for a game 163 win. Same thing can be true for these Mets. They got to be able to put things behind them, though. So I'm very, very curious to watch the 9 innings of baseball tonight against the San Diego Padres. We will hopefully chat again after that Padres series and after every series coming up. I'll be on the mic no matter what. We appreciate you. Jerry, you got anything else?
That's it, man. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets, baby. Hold the faith. 12 games. It's not football season yet. I said it again. I reminded you. I'm sorry. I'm a bad friend. I'm going to
go cry into my coffee.
Sounds like a Mets fan.
Jerry and Charlie, thank you all for coming. Hope you enjoyed the show. We will see you next time where we'll be back.
Station.